Okay. I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and today we're going over to the British Isles, and the title is The Shamrock and the Dragon. The Shamrock obviously represents Ireland, and the dragon represents Wales, and we're going to do the dragon first. Now the area we're talking about for Wales is this, fairly small area, and then later on we'll cross over and we'll do this part. We'll take just a brief cut into Northern Ireland right in here. Northern Ireland is the disputed area right at the moment, we'll call it that. Now, if you saw the show that I do on a bit of Britain, you have already seen these pictures, this picture of the ruins of Tynan Abbey, but it's actually in Wales. Tynan Abbey was built in about 1131 by the Cistercians, I suppose. It was suppressed by Henry VIII in 1536. And what they did was go after the lead. The lead was very valuable in the roof. And that's why the roof of all of these different abbeys and cathedrals went. It's amazing, built in 1131, and that much of it is still standing after the torture that it received. It's in the Wye Valley, and Wordsworth wrote about this area. He called the thing Lines Written Above Tynan Abbey, and then he proceeded not to mention Tynan Abbey in it at all. He talked about the hillsides and coming back as an older person after being in them as a youth and so forth. But it's a beautiful place. And then we're driving this trip. Actually, you were seeing a composite, but the most of it was from a driving tour on the left-hand side of the road and doing bed and breakfasts, mostly at farms and little towns. And I'm taking this picture out of the room of our bed and breakfast. We're on a sheep farm, the Yeoman's Farm at Wannistow. It's up by Monmouth, not far from that ruins of Tynan Abbey. And this is what the countryside looks like from right out in front of their farm. You can already see the patchwork quilt. And then when we left them, we went first to Raglan Castle. This is a 15th century castle. When the English were trying to subjugate the Welsh, they built fortifications about a day's march apart. So you get to see quite a few and very close together in Wales of these castles. This is Raglan, and now each one of these castles costs you a little bit, but we have never found the admission prices very high, and it shouldn't be a deterrent to you to visit them. And unlike something here in America, they let you climb all over the place. And so you can see I'm up fairly high taking the pictures. And if you thought the British Isles were just completely covered with people, look at all that farmland in the background here. Wheat fields there in the back. And start to look at some of the detail and how it's lasted from the 15th century. Really pretty good stuff. Now this is the inner courtyard. This is where the public, when the castle was open to the public, this is where the public would have been allowed to come, but they could not go into rooms or anything of that nature. And we've gone on, now we're going to another castle. But we have passed through some beautiful, beautiful countryside. Just a really enjoy visiting in Wales. There's not a lot of traffic in most places, and it's sort of easy to drive on the left-hand side of the road, and then you see these castles. This is Carine-Senna Castle at Trapp. This is a 14th century castle, a little older than Raglan. And I'm in the parking lot. They call them car parks, and you have to walk up to there. A few flowers on the way, probably mustard. Later on, when we talk about Ireland, we'll be talking about 40 shades of green, but it looks like quite a bit of green here. And we're inside of the castle now. And have made our way back down to the car park. You don't just go straight up. The route winds. You can see where they used to go straight up, and it's all eroded. So they don't permit that anymore. Our next stop was at a sheep and dairy farm at Carmarthen. Carmarthen is the Merlin's birthplace. He was the magician of King Arthur. And out from there, we spent 2 nights there, and we went out to St. Gavon's Head and a 13th century chapel. And we're walking down to that little chapel now. And the trail goes right through it. And then you get to this rocky view of some very beautiful cliffs there on this southern end. That's my wife Eleanor to the left of the picture. Really rugged stuff. We will, when we get to Ireland, we'll see the cliffs of Moher. But remember these cliffs back in Wales when you see those. And that is the little chapel there. That's 12th century chapel, way back. Whoops, I'm sorry, 13th century, 1 century off. Here are the high cliffs. And while we were there, people right up in here were rappelling down those cliffs, getting practice for mountain climbing, I suppose, getting practice. But that's what you're looking at down below. It's a pretty treacherous place if you miss. And then we went through and did not stop in the little town of Pembroke. But I put this picture in so that you can see that many of these castles are right in the little towns. That's the old Pembroke Castle there as we go through. And we were going over to St. David's, and this is the Bishop's Palace at St. David's. And this is right over from it will be a 12th century cathedral, and that's the one I was mixing up. But this is the Bishop's Palace. I'm not sure why a bishop needed a palace like that, but there is that 12th century cathedral, and it's still in use. And again, they let you climb all over this place. Obviously, I couldn't have taken that last picture without being up fairly high. All kinds of wondrous things to climb around on and over and everything else. I don't know how they get the title, but they call this a white sand beach. They have never seen our white sands out in New Mexico, I'm sure. They wouldn't use that name. It was a little windy and even a little chilly that day, but they were windsurfing out there anyhow. And then we made our way on down, and here's one of the views as we came upon a town. And later on, we we'll come into one that is very tricky to pronounce. I'll give it a shot. This is it, Aberystwyth. How's that? This is the original building, what you're looking at, of the University of Wales. It's now a museum. This one. And we had a particular reason for coming to this place. This was a peace memorial of some sort. It almost looks like the ruins of an old castle, but that's what I was told anyhow. And we have gone all the way around. That memorial is over here, and we've gone all the way around to here. I'm sorry, I think that's the peace memorial, and this may have been an old castle. And then you can see buildings all the way along here, and here's that beach. But here's the reason why we came to Aberystwyth. We wanted to go on one of those little narrow gauge trains out to the Devil's Bridge. You go through Rydal Valley. There are 10 of these in Wales. This one is about 12 miles that you travel. Some of them are only a mile and a half or so, but they're all handled by just little groups that like little trains, and so they keep them going. And we're going out now through the Rydal Valley, a real beautiful spot, and you can put the windows down, and you're going slow enough so that you can take all the pictures that you want. You have some places where you're going through small forests where you can't see too much, but you have other places like this that really make up for it. It's a real pretty valley, and you're going slowly, slowly, slowly through it. And then we're at Devil's Bridge. There's a little waterfall there, cascades and so forth. And here's Devil's Bridge. And Devil's Bridge, this one, goes back to the 12th century. And it's still up there. And then there was this one. And then there was the one today. And we had just driven over that the previous day. So you have actually 3 bridges there. It looks like 2, but there are 3. Well, you can see it there where the other one. Here's the Devil's Bridge, here's the other one, and here's the one on top. And the one on top, obviously, is the one we crossed over. And you get out to that place on this delightful little narrow gauge railroad. Now, I read that as Devil's Bridge. If you can see and can read that other one, you're a better man than I am. These Welsh names are really something. We're heading on up, still on fairly close to the coastline now, and we're heading up to Harlech Castle. And this is it on a Sunday afternoon. It's in pretty good shape. It goes back to Edward I, and that's 1283 to 1289 it was under construction. Beautiful day, beautiful clouds, and really a neat place. And that's Tremedog Bay out there in front of it. You can see sand dunes there. While we're, I should have mentioned while we were down in southern Wales, because we've moved on up to the top now, down in the Preskelly Mountains is the source of some of the Stonehenge stones. And that's about 200 miles from the Salisbury area where Stonehenge is located. And they took those stones over there from mountains over here in Wales. Oh, it was a Sunday afternoon, but we got treated to a sight. these 4 sheep, and that's the border collie, the sheepdog behind them, they had not been sheared, and the farmer had located them. So while the dog held them in place, the farmer would take them down one at a time and shear them. And these guys are probably up on there pushing one for him to go next. And here's the dog watching them. And they won't do anything while that dog is still there. But the farmer is over here shearing the last of his sheep, these 4, on a Sunday afternoon. That's a massive looking castle, that Harlech. Then we're making our way over, we're going over to a farm, the Roberts farm, and we're going to spend 2 nights there. And we go across this kind of terrain. I bet you I could put that in a show of Western United States and call that the High Plains, and nobody would know the difference. But it's in northern Wales. And this is at Trefnet, and that house of theirs goes back to 1667. And she let me take a print of it outside of what it originally looked like, there's the shot. I can take close-ups of stuff like that pretty easy. And then they sent us to a particular restaurant. See, the bed and breakfast is just that. You don't get dinner, but you ask them where to go, and they'll send you to some place. We're going down now to an area called Horseshoe Pass, and then the Vallecrucis Abbey down to Kirk Castle. This is Horseshoe Pass. This is sort of in north-central Wales, 1,300 feet. But they get a lot of snow here. Not a lot, but in some years they get snowed in for 3 days at a time. This is all rock over here, and there's a term for that called burren country. But it's a real pretty valley down through here. And then when you get to the Vallecrucis Abbey ruins, these go back to 1202, and this place is just spick and span. This also was suppressed by Henry VIII. He wasn't getting enough money, and so he suppressed a number of these religious orders. That meant he could take their money and tear into their buildings and so forth. But look at what's left. Just quite a monument. And this particular part actually, for some reason or other, still has a roof on it. And there's a hallway that you go through, and there's a little chapel in there. Then we went on to Llangollen. This is an old area, a very rough river coming through there. And that bridge that you see all decorated for a festival is a 14th century bridge, still in use. And then Kirk Castle. This has been occupied since 1310, and there's still people living in it. So that you don't go to all of the rooms of it, but you go to a number of them. And they even let you use your camera without flash inside. Now, before we leave this area, up in the northeastern part, the northeastern part of Wales, you're looking at the ceiling right here. In the northeastern part of Wales, there's a town of Ruthin. We have spent a night at a farm outside of Ruthin, but there is an 8 p.m. curfew rung since the 11th century. Every night since the 11th century. some of these dates over in the British Isles and over in Europe are just fantastic. We're still at that castle, only on the outside. You're going to see it a couple more times. The gardens and the castle. And then I always like these pictures where you have the sheep and this castle in the background. Now I have just a couple of pictures of Snowdonia National Park. Now their national parks are not like ours. They're not treated the same way. We tend not to have people living in them. Now we have a national recreation area close by us, but that is a different setup than a national park. And they have a tremendous amount of private inholdings. But then on the other hand, they have things like public footpaths where you can go across privately held land without asking permission as long as you stay on the footpath. This is Carnarvon Castle. This goes back to 1283. I've never been in this castle, but I've been down by it. Because these are my pictures, and that was where Prince Charles became the Prince of Wales in 1969. And now I've taken you, while I was telling you that, I've taken you over to Conway Castle. This is the 13th century Edward I. And this suspension bridge that you see right in here, that's one in 1826 by Thomas Telford. And in the British Isles, you see a number of bridges that he actually designed. But now we're going to cross the sea to Ireland and pick it up. Everything that you see in the picture here, I'm on a ferry, and everything in the picture is in Ireland, either Northern Ireland or Ireland proper. The St. George's Channel and the Irish Sea separate Wales and Ireland. We're in Dublin. We landed at Dublin and picked up a car and stayed in Dublin the one night. This is the Rebellion plaque here, and this is in front of the post office. And this is where Southern Ireland, called Erie, got its independence. That's where it started. And then over, this is a Saturday afternoon, so nothing is open. This is at Trinity College. And Trinity College is where the Book of Kells, the illustrated book of the Bible, is held. It's a famous old thing. But we didn't stay in Dublin very long. We went on down to Enniskerry, and this is Powers Court Falls, just close by what we really went for, the gardens, Powers Court Gardens. Now you have to content yourself